Welcome. This short video will provide you with an introduction into the agriculture and food business of SGS Germany, specifically into one of its segments, hospitality services. We will show to you how the segment is using the software solutions from ClickSoftware in order to plan and execute hygiene inspections for and at its customers. So, what are the customers of this business? For instance, caterers and system gastronomies, so probably also your favorite fast food restaurant is included, hotel chains and motorway stops, and food retailers and producers. So, what do they do in this business? They conduct hygiene inspections, which may involve the taking of samples for further analysis. But they also conduct agricultural audits. Where do they work? Well, in kitchens, guest and bathrooms, spas, counters, so really everywhere where flawless hygiene is essential, and this also involves farms. Who is doing that work? They have about 120 auditors with a wide variety of skills and certifications who work in and around Germany. When do these guys work? Basically, this is a mass business, with 10,000s of visits to be planned and scheduled each year without prior notice to the sites to be visited, but in regular intervals, for instance once every quarter. In order to minimize disturbances of the operations at these sites, there are specific visit times to comply with. One visit lasts between 15 minutes and a complete day. What are the prerequisites for a successful visit? An auditor needs to have the right skills, but also the logistics need to be sorted. The auditor needs to have the right material and equipment for sample taking in the car, and thermal packs in sufficient quantities and sizes. Therefore, an auditor needs to know well in advance about the visits so that there's enough time to prepare and to pack the car. What are the most important business outcomes expected from the ClickSoftware planning and scheduling solution? Well, as this is a low-margin mass business, utilization and productivity of the auditors are key, which means that travel time needs to be as minimal as possible. So, let's have a quick look at the ClickSoftware ClickSchedule solution, which is used by dispatchers and managers at SGS Germany. First, you see that just a browser is necessary to access a cloud-based software as a service, which is provided by ClickSoftware over the web. So the deployment costs for SGS Germany are minimal, and ClickSoftware ensures availability, performance and security. Here you see the various functional modules an SGS dispatcher can work with. Currently we are looking at the planning board. The planning is done for a particular week, for instance within the next months, and for a particular set of geographical areas or organizational units, with so-called soft boundaries between these areas to ensure optimal utilization. And here we see all the work orders, which are applicable for this planning horizon and area or unit. And here we see all the auditors, internal and external ones, that work for these units. The so-called Gantt chart shows to us the orders which are assigned to the auditors for a particular day, and the status of these orders, so where they are in the workflow. For instance, the color of blue means this is completed. And finally, we see an integrated map, which can be used to visualize the locations of work orders or sites. The underlying street network data is also used to estimate travel times, which are an essential input into the optimization of the overall planning to ensure the expected business outcome. Alright, let's have a look at the overall workflow, which is the context in which the ClickSoftware solution is used. All work actually originates within the SAP customer service solution at SGS Germany, which knows all about the customers' contracts and contracted audits. From SAP, all the work is transferred automatically into the ClickSoftware solution, where the audits become so-called tasks with a status of open, so they are ready to be automatically scheduled. So, Here we see a list of audits imported as open tasks into ClickSchedule. These are the details of such a task. For instance, there is the order number from SAP, there is the time window in which the particular site is okay to be visited, there is the specific type of inspection to be performed, and the planned duration for the inspection, which is here 3 hours. Here is the time window within we can schedule this particular task. It is between 8 in the morning and 5 in the afternoon. So actually we have a window of 9 hours to schedule the 3 hours necessary for our inspection. We still need to comply with the opening hours of the site we have to visit. On the next tab, we see the address of the customer site to be visited and its coordinates. So this task is properly geocoded. If necessary, there also could be a regional calendar of the organizational unit responsible for this task, which would tell the system about any local holidays to take into account. This tab lists all the qualifications that an auditor needs to have in order to be able to perform this task. And on this final tab, we find additional details about the task itself, for instance, the expected revenue and, most important, a link to the form that needs to be completed for documenting the results of the visit. We later will see how the auditor uses Click Mobile to retrieve, fill out and submit this form. As the task is properly geocoded, we can use the embedded map view to look at its precise location. Through the location, the task is also connected to the underlying street network, so that the system can determine accurate estimates regarding an auditor's travel to and from this site. Let's move back to the overall business process. Now that ClickSchedule knows about all the work to be completed, the next step is to determine not only a suitable, but actually the best schedule for the next couple of weeks ahead. This is the responsibility of the so-called background optimizer, a software module that runs every night to look at the millions of potential options for such a schedule. The optimizer is driven by rules and objectives. Rules are telling the system what is suitable, and objectives are used to compare different schedules in order to determine the most optimal one. Rules that need to be considered at SGS Germany include promises to customers, auditor skills, proximity, no expenses for overnight stays, and being compliant with all the working time agreements. Objectives that drive which schedule is actually suggested by the optimizer include the focus on priorities, the focus on own resources, and the maximization of productivity and utilization. Let's have a quick look at the configuration application of ClickSchedule, which is available to the administrators of the system. We see that the system knows about different scheduling and optimization policies, for instance the SGS Germany standard one, another less relaxed one that completely excludes scheduling to contractors, or another more relaxed one that also allows scheduling to overtime. Different policies might be used in different business situations. Each policy consists of rules and objectives and respective parameters. We see here that there are many predefined rules an administrator can choose from in order to adopt the system 100% to the needs of the particular business. The same holds true for objectives. The weight is telling the optimizer how important a specific objective is for a given policy. As previously explained, here we see a focus on utilizing own resources, which are here called internal engineers, a focus on considering the task priority, and on minimizing overall travel. So, just by configuration, ClickSchedule can be aligned with the business needs and to changes in the business environment in the moment they become apparent. The result of running the background optimizer is that as much tasks as possible are automatically scheduled for the weeks ahead. The tasks in the upcoming 2 weeks normally are not touched any longer by the optimizer, so that the auditors can prepare and pack their cars. The work further out in the future is actually reconsidered by subsequent runs of the optimizer, for instance to see whether in the meanwhile even more important or urgent tasks have arrived that have precedence. Whenever as a result of scheduling there is a new or an updated planned execution time for a task, then this information is also written back to SAP, so that also the customer service department always has the complete picture in SAP. Let's have a look at one optimized day for one particular auditor. In the morning, there are 48 minutes of travel from home to reach the first site. After a first task, there are just 9 minutes of travel to reach the second site. After a second task, there are just 7 minutes of travel to the third site and time for a lunch break. After the third task, 10 minutes of travel to the fourth site. And after the last task, there are 39 minutes of travel back to the home location. With the exception of maybe 20 minutes, the full day of the auditor is properly and nicely planned. A wonderful but typical result of running the background optimizer. You might wonder, if the background optimizer is doing such a great job, is there still a need for human dispatcher intervention or control? Yes, in fact, there is, but only for exceptions, where there is a need for collaboration and coordination between various roles within SGS Germany. Here there are two examples for such exceptions. It might be that internal resources are underutilized, because there's just not enough suitable work close enough to the auditor. In such a case, the dispatcher might decide to extraordinarily pull forward some other work to fill the gap. Other options include to relocate the auditor for a limited amount of time, or rarely to agree with the manager to exchange past overtime with some time off. The ultimate goal is to ensure 100% utilization. Another, more long-term example is the situation of tasks which strictly can't be scheduled, for instance, due to missing skills or missing resources. Again, the dispatcher will work with management to identify the best resolution. This also can be the approval of planned overtime. On the Gantt chart we looked at previously, there are two examples for such a decision. Here we see that this resource has some 20 minutes of planned overtime in order to make it back home. The color pink indicates that there was some manual intervention and that this assignment is fixed, in contrast to yellow, which is the result of automated planning, which is okay to be further improved by subsequent optimizer runs. Here, there is another example where overtime was approved for both the first and the last travel. Let's move further ahead in the process. When planning and optimization is settled, the scheduled tasks are disclosed, we also say dispatched, to the auditors. There are two variations of this step. When the task is scheduled for an internal resource, this SGS auditor is simply expected to complete the task in time. Within Click Schedule, SGS auditors have another icon than any freelancers. And they also have a special property which marks them as internal, so that both the dispatchers and the optimizer can clearly differentiate. When the task is scheduled to an external resource, because it seemed there was no better option, then first the responsible SGS service manager needs to decide whether to approve or not. If there is an approval, then the task is dispatched to a respective freelancer, who then can decide whether to accept or to reject this assignment. Let's have a quick look how ClickSchedule supports the SGS service managers regarding the approval decision. The service managers have, again over the web, access to a simplified version of the planning board. A predefined query allows them to easily identify all tasks scheduled to external resources and waiting for their decision. As the SGS dispatchers, they can have a look at the details of tasks and resources or at the Gantt chart showing the planned utilization to get a background for their decision. Once they have decided, they simply change the status of the task under consideration to either approved or rejected, and the process can move on. So let's continue our journey through the process. We now switch into the field, so into the world of the auditors, internal and external ones. Both groups work with Click Mobile to retrieve their assignments, to prepare their cars, to capture task status and completion information, and to fill out their timesheets. The auditors use a variety of different mobile devices, for instance laptops, iPads or Android smartphones. But just one mobile application that runs on all of these platforms. ClickMobile has a so-called responsive user interface, so it automatically adopts to all the different form factors. A couple of things are important to mention. ClickMobile has the ability to work completely in offline mode, so no continuous connectivity is required. The application provides all current task assignments for the next weeks ahead, but also the past assignments of the last 30 days. There is a company agreement between SGS Germany and the Workers' Council so that auditors are only required to synchronize their mobile application 2 times a day, in the morning when they start and in the evening when they finish. Nevertheless, if an auditor is happy to do so, they also can synchronize during the day, for instance to report task status updates or to get alternative assignments when a site was not accessible. In any case, there is no GPS tracking of the auditors, which is important regarding Germany's data privacy regulations, but an auditor can report arrived on site if he is happy to do so. Here is a view on ClickMobile. After logging in, if there is connectivity, ClickMobile first performs a synchronization to make sure its data is up to date. The functions which are available to the mobile worker can be easily configured according to the business needs. Here we see options to look at the schedule of an auditor, to send and receive messages, and to work with timesheets. The schedule is presenting all task assignments for a particular day, their status, and some configurable overview information. If we click on one task, we see all its details on several configurable tabs. On the first tab, an auditor sees and also can update the status of the task, the expected execution time, the type of work to perform, information about the customer and the location, the expected duration, which is here 2 hours, and special instructions for this task coming directly from customer service, such as first check-in at the main gate, for example. As it may be important for the customer to know the exact arrival time of the auditor, on this tab there's also the possibility to report a likely delay, for instance due to heavy traffic. So the customer will be informed and the SGS dispatcher can take care of other assignments that might be affected by the late arrival as well. Through the second tab, the auditor has easy access to the documents, files or forms that are needed to execute and complete the task. For each such package, a version number is provided so that the auditor can check whether he has downloaded this version already. If not, a hyperlink on the tab connects him to the SGS Germany ShareFile site, from where such a download easily can be performed. Here, for example, the task is a training, so the auditor has access to all the training materials and the list of expected participants. The third tab provides contact information, and on the last tab the auditor can provide detailed task status information, for instance whether he travels, has arrived or has finished. He also can indicate that an audit was not possible because the site refused, was closed or even does not exist any longer. In case of a refusal, the auditor can capture the reason, for instance just not enough personnel available on site to help. Finally, the auditor hits Saves to submit his updates. You might wonder what happens with all these status updates, or in case that an expected update like task completed does not happen in time. Well, all these updates are synchronized back to ClickSchedule, where specific mechanisms detect whether a task needs to be declared as in jeopardy, meaning that here a risk that something is going terribly wrong is existing. These jeopardies are then brought to the attention of the dispatchers, who have various options how to react and make sure that critical situations are fixed. The easiest option, by the way, is to wait for the ClickSchedule background optimizer to adopt the planning to the updates which have arrived from the field. The SGS dispatchers have access to a query that gives them all tasks in a jeopardy condition, having a red flag. Next to the flag, the actual condition is listed. The first task, for instance, is in jeopardy because it was assigned to an external resource, but so far no approval was received. The following tasks are in jeopardy because they are due today, but so far no status updates arrived from the field. Further down, there are other tasks in jeopardy because the background optimizer tried to schedule or reschedule them, but without success. So the dispatchers need to find out why and take corrective action. Of course, due to proper planning and timely information, the majority of tasks is completed in time and without issues. Task completion is reported by the auditors, synchronized with ClickSchedule, and then forwarded to the customer service SAP system. It remains the responsibility of the SGS dispatchers to ensure that also after field completion nothing goes wrong, for instance regarding the post-processing of audits or regarding the shipment and analysis of taken samples. For this, the reporting capabilities in ClickSchedule are of a great help. But also for the auditors, the day is not yet finished. They need to ensure their various working and travel activities are accurately registered in their timesheets and that completed timesheets are timely submitted. Moreover, they might need to prepare for the days and assignments ahead. In Click Mobile, there's one timesheet for every day. Each timesheet is pre-populated through the status updates that were reported on that particular day. So the auditor does not need to remember all the activities by himself. Click Mobile is doing that for him. Here we see a travel activity and two working activities relating to two different tasks. If necessary, the start and end times for an activity can be adjusted, or new activities can be added. Here, for instance, the auditor adds an extra break, which is not related to any particular task. The activity type is selected from a respective catalog. But it is also possible to create an additional activity for a specific task. To facilitate this, Click Mobile presents a list of all the tasks the auditor has worked on. Once the auditor is happy with the timesheet for a given day, the timesheet is submitted. It then goes to ClickSchedule for approval and finally to SAP for financial settlement. The last activity of the auditor might be to prepare for the next days, especially to make sure all the necessary sample-taking materials are in the car. For this, Click Mobile offers a special task list with all the relevant task details at a glance. This list easily can be printed if necessary. Okay, this concludes our journey through the SGS Hygiene check process. Let us summarize. We have seen how SGS dispatchers, managers, auditors, and admins are using the ClickSoftware system, what their key use cases are, and how these use cases are supported by key functions and key components, especially the background optimizer, the ClickSchedule application, and the Click Mobile mobile app. We looked at the data coming from and going back to SAP. SGS Germany made sure that all their non-functional requirements also are met, which includes the multi-stage environment and that important additional stakeholders like the Corporate Data Protection Officer and the Workers' Council are satisfied. The central value the ClickSoftware solution provides is the optimization of the auditor's routes, resulting in less travel and more productivity. For even more information, please visit our websites. Thank you very much.